in Congress, toward Wall Street. And I'm here to tell you that this kind of debate over time is going to elevate the trust level in whomever makes it out as the nominee. That will allow us to beat Barack Obama. Thank you.
Well, that is it for our debate tonight. Thank you all very much. Our thanks to the candidates, their staffs, the Iowa Republican Party, and to all the great people here in Sioux City and, of course, in Iowa. They could not have been more hospitable. Our next debate is in South Carolina, January 16th. But after the holidays, we'll be right back here in Iowa for extensive coverage of the caucuses, then in New Hampshire for the primary. Stay with Fox News Channel, America's election headquarters, all the way through the conventions, the general election, and, of course, the inauguration in 2013. Post-debate analysis is on the way. Keep it here. Thank you.
After the all-important GOP debate, Frank Luntz has the pulse of the people. Plus, Gingrich, Romney, Paul, Perry, and Bachmann speak out to Sean on a special Hannity tonight at 11.
Welcome back. We're going to get some instant reaction from Juan Williams, columnist with The Hill, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Charles, your thoughts on this debate?
Very interesting debate. It had kind of the rhythms of the whole campaign. Romney was very steady, sort of steady state. He wasn't high, wasn't low. He resisted all attacks. He was given an opening on the right-wing social engineering. Didn't attack Gingrich. Gingrich, as is his wont, at times really strong, at times really weak. Very strong attacking judges, very strong attacking Obama on Keystone, very weak when he was attacked on the Freddie Mac $1.6 million. And who did the attacking? Bachmann. She asserted herself tonight. Strong attacks on Gingrich on that, as opposed to others. She went right after him. Strong attack on him at the end on late-term abortion. And then there was, interesting, Ron Paul, who I thought was impressive in resisting the mob on judges. But then he did Iran and nukes. He was off the rails. So I thought it had all the elements that we have seen in this campaign: Romney neutral, Gingrich up and down, Bachmann strong, reasserting herself, and Paul wacky and yet impressive at times.
Juan, your thoughts?
Well, I think if you had to make a judgment right now, you'd say that what we were down to was a four-man field. And I think that the people who are left right now, if you like the analogy of Survivor, the people who are left standing would be Paul, would be obviously Gingrich, Romney, and I think Perry. I think Perry, with his very memorable Tim Tebow analogy, is still around, and he was kind of, self-deferential about what was going on and his ability to debate. But Gingrich came in with the most to lose, and he was losing some momentum in some of the polls we've been seeing, Brett. I think after tonight he regained it. Boy, he had the crowd on his side in the discussion about the pipeline and discussion about the judges. And I didn't see Romney go after him and take him out, which is what we had anticipated. In the argument about conservatism, I think that Gingrich managed to hold his own tonight, and that counts for a lot going towards the January 3rd caucus.
Charles, thank you very much. And now to my fantastic colleagues here. Neil, your first run. Quickly, thoughts?
I was impressed with Michele Bachmann. She was on her game. I was also impressed with Governor Perry. I mean, he really has improved in these debates.
Chris?
Yeah, I think the two big winners tonight were Michele Bachmann and Rick Perry, two of the people who were sort of out in the wings. I think Ron Paul, look, his supporters love him, but that stuff about Iran is going to be tough for a lot of conservatives to accept.
I think people loved what Gingrich said on the courts, and Michele Bachmann backed him up, but I think that's going to be a problem for either of them if they move on to the general election.
Surprised there wasn't a lot of fighting at the beginning, but eventually got there. That's it for us. Thanks for watching. Have a good night. Now I'll throw it over to my colleague, Sean Hannity in the spin room. Sean.
And thanks, Brett Baer, and welcome to the special post-debate edition of Hannity Live. We're in Sioux City, Iowa tonight, and this evening, 7 remaining GOP candidates, they duked it out on stage in the most important debate so far of this primary cycle. Now, over the next hour, you will hear directly from many of the candidates. Newt Gingrich, you'll hear from Mitt Romney, Ron Paul, Rick Perry, and Michele Bachmann. But first, Frank Luntz is here with reaction to tonight's debate. This is an important night.
It's the most important night. This will be the most watched debate. And you who are watching right now are going to have the opportunity to weigh in. If you go to weigh in, W-A-Y-I-N, there will be a series of questions to find out who you thought won this debate. Again, weigh in, W-A-Y-I-N.
Okay. And we can get some results by the end of the program.
We'll have results before the program is over.
Why don't we go person by person? Let's start with the front runner as of right now, and that's Newt Gingrich. Although it's very tight here in Iowa. You've got Gingrich, Mitt Romney, Ron Paul, neck and neck. Strongest moments, weakest moments for Newt Gingrich tonight?
I have to start with the weakest moment because it's the thing that people have focused on with him, and its relationship to Freddie Mac. That they came after him, Michele Bachmann came after him, Ron Paul came after him, and even some of the panelists came after him, and it was about 5 straight minutes of negative on him, and I'd like to replay one of those clips because you'll get an understanding. And what was key about this, Sean, is that there was no sound, no applause after his response.
We're not going to get to any of the shots right now, but let me just ask you this. But did he have a good opening? I thought he had a strong opening. Obviously, his answer on judges. What did you think of that answer?
The answer on judges, the answer in the pipeline. When he was focused on Barack Obama, he was at his most effective. And in fact, the judges' response got among the highest applause. Also, his position on Iran is clearly in the mainstream of the Republican Party. For Newt, the second half of the debate was redefining for him. The first half was tough.
What about the issue, it was funny, I think he joked about, zany, I'm editing, I'm using mild words, and then he used some very tough words here, that it was mindless, especially, and irrational, the president's policy. I believe at that point it was on energy. Obviously, responding to Mitt Romney, when he's on stage, and obviously he's risen to the polls because of these debates, when he's on stage, does he counter that argument, that narrative that his opponents are trying to advance on him?
Absolutely. When he's playing the historian, that's why he went from 4% in the polls up to over 30%. But when he's put in the position of politician and on defense, that's the negative that he wants to try to change. For him, the narrative is it about his ideas or is it about his politics? The ideas win. The politics don't.
All right, let's go to Governor Mitt Romney. Strongest, weakest moment tonight?
The strongest moment for him is when he talked about Barack Obama saying that the country is in decline. Well, if he remains as president, it is. If I'm president, it won't be. It would be the single best line of the entire debate. And in fact, Mitt Romney was solid all the way through. The applause for him started to increase after about the first half hour. He did not attack virtually at all. His focus was on Barack Obama, and that's what the audience wants from him, not to go after Newt Gingrich. They want him to go after President Obama.
It was one general observation, though, because there were multiple opportunities for all the candidates to go after each other, and the only candidate that made a decision that they were going to go after somebody was Michele Bachmann against Newt Gingrich on a number of issues, on life, and you mentioned earlier the Freddie Mac. You have, in these focus groups, said that that has not been playing well with the focus groups.
Because Republicans, their one focus, their only focus is on President Obama, and they're so desperate to change the direction of the country and change the leadership of the country. To them, when you go at each other, it weakens you. It makes you less likely to defeat this president.
Mitt Romney, there was a poll out that said that only 25% view him as conservative. 59 viewed Newt Gingrich as the more conservative candidate. That issue came up tonight in the debate. Did he do a good job of maybe trying to win over some of those undecided conservative voters, or those that maybe had doubt about whether or not his values are rooted in the principled conservatism?
In fact, a couple questions about that he changed his position on the issues. I've never seen him so good as this evening in explaining those changes. Newt defined himself as the Reagan conservative, Mitt Romney, the private sector conservative, Ron Paul, the civil liberties conservative, Rick Santorum, the conviction conservative, John Huntsman, the consistent conservative, Michele Bachmann, the female conservative, and my favorite is Rick Perry, the Tim Tebow conservative.
That was a good line.
I got a good laugh from them.
I thought it did.
When Romney talked about GM, that the president bought GM, the government went in and they laid off people, it was a very good analogy to what his job was at Bain. And I just thought that Romney was steady. He was consistent. Of all the debates I've seen him in, I think this one was his best.
You think this was Romney's best? All right, let's go to third-tier candidates. Michele Bachmann, Rick Santorum, Governor Perry. They've not been doing as well in the polls. Did they help their cause tonight, any of those three?
Governor Perry had the best laugh lines of this evening, and he actually appeared the most relaxed as I've seen him. Michele Bachmann was on attack, attack, attack.
Does that help her?
It helps solidify her vote, but it doesn't help her gain more votes. It's not what Republicans want to hear. And she She was relentless. And Santorum didn't seem to be a part of the debate. It doesn't help that you're at the very end, that you're actually stationed at the end. He had less time to speak, and there weren't really any memorable lines.
All right, let's go to Ron Paul. Obviously, very different philosophy, especially on foreign policy. And he seemed to get very animated during this debate. Did he help bring anybody, except his very strong and loyal supporters, did he win anybody over tonight to his side that maybe is not the strongest Ron Paul supporter going in?
In the first half of the debate, absolutely, because he talked about cutting $1 trillion from the budget.
Overall, when you add foreign policy.
But that's the point. In the first half, yes. In the second half, he loses them. Because where he stands on economic policy, with the Republican primary electorate, he destroys himself on foreign policy and national security. The fact is, Sean, the vast majority of Republicans want a strong military. They want investment there. And Ron Paul is talking about cutting it by half.
Frank Luntz, good to see you. Thanks for being with us.
And we'll come back with that polling data.
That's by the end of the show. Also coming up, the candidates are now entering right behind me here in the spin room. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich, he will be up first, and then later you're going to hear from Mitt Romney, Ron Paul, Rick Perry, Michele Bachmann, and much, much more. This special post-debate edition of Hannity. We are live in Sioux City, Iowa, as we continue.
I've been working on this project since 2002, when the Ninth Circuit Court said that one nation under God is unconstitutional in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I decided if you had judges who were so radically anti-American that they thought one nation under God was wrong, they shouldn't be on the court. Now, I taught a short course in this at the University of Georgia Law School. I testified in front of sitting Supreme Court justices at Georgetown Law School, and I warned them, you keep attacking the core base of American exceptionalism, and you are going to find an uprising against you, which will rebalance the judiciary. We have a balance of three branches. We do not have a judicial dictatorship in this country.
And welcome back to the special edition of Hannity Live from Sioux City, Iowa. Joining me now is the candidate that is now leading in the polls in Iowa and around the country, the man you just heard from, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. How are you? Welcome.
Great to be with you.
You enjoyed the debate? You have fun?
I thought it was a good debate. I thought, we've all gotten to know each other better. And so there's a camaraderie up there. It may not always seem that way but there's a camaraderie. We're all on a journey together. And I think it was very good.
I did notice that there were times that it seemingly was openings for people to go after you, and they didn't take it. The one person that was going after you more than anybody, obviously, was Michele Bachmann.
Yeah, and I think everybody has their own style. And I think that because we're willing, there's some genuine affection. I really like Rick Perry. I really like Rick Santorum. I've known him a long time. Mitt and I have gotten to be much closer over the course of this. John Huntsman and I did a great debate last Monday in New Hampshire. Very substantive, a lot of fun. So there's a camaraderie building. And even although I think the toughest ads against me are being run by Ron Paul, it's very hard to really dislike Ron Paul. I mean, he's just sort of who he is.
It was very interesting because at one point in the debate they were asking you about temperament and running for president and whether or not you're disciplined enough. Do you think in the course of these debates, as you stayed disciplined and you're not going negative and you're just answering the question, that maybe you're proving some of that narrative is false?
Oh, I think people are going to watch us and they will render judgment. But as you know, because you've seen me for most of my career, I'm actually very disciplined. I work very, very hard. I have a real sense of purpose. But it is true, when you're trying to get something as big as balancing the budget for 4 straight years, you do some zigzagging because I was dealing with a liberal Democratic president. So some of the guys who are purists say, well, wait a second, you actually did some things that Bill Clinton was willing to sign. Well, yeah, I mean, you want to get to a balanced budget with a Democratic president, you got to find some way to find a common ground that'll work.
I found tonight was the first time you really honed in on your past record and wanted to get your side of the story out. I want to give you an opportunity to respond to Michele Bachmann in one more sense, because you said to her, and she seemed to take offense later in the debate, that when you said it was factually untrue, some of the allegations she was making about pro-life and in the earlier case about Freddie Mac. You say you were not a lobbyist. She's claiming you were an influence peddler.
Yeah, and it's just factually false.
Yeah.
And it's factually false for a practical reason. I had a broad enough base of activities. I mean, I've written 24 books, 13 New York Times bestsellers, made 7 movies. I mean, we're doing tons of stuff. I had zero reason to ever once try to say to somebody, oh, please give me money and I'll go represent you in any form. What I have done as a citizen is I've said what I believe the party needs to hear. I've